Hey guys, we're going to start a new unit today, and we're going to start it with square roots of perfect squares, which is a little bit of a review of what we've done, what you've done in the past. It's going to lead into something very new, which will include a little bit of equation solving, but nothing like what we had to do in the last unit, but it will involve a little bit of that. Okay, so but we're going to start with square roots of perfect squares today, and vocabulary is going to be very important because of vocabulary I'm going to use when I'm talking about these things. So let's start with what it means to square a number. So to square a number, to square a number means, okay, to square a number means multiply the number by itself. The number by itself, which should sound a little bit familiar because we have talked about it before, or you have talked about this idea before when you were first introduced to exponents in sixth grade or seventh grade. And so that would mean 4 times 4, which is, and this is why we call it 4 squared. We hear a lot of people say 4 squared. And that in case the answer would be 16. So why do we call it square? Why do we call it? Why do we square? Why do we say square it? Because what we're literally doing is we're making a square out of the number 4. So we're going to do 4 squares down, 1, 2, 3, 4 squares down, 4 squares across, and making a square. We're literally making a square out of the number 4. See, it's 4 down and 4 across. The area of this square is 16 because it's 4 times 4, or it's 4 squared. That's why we use the vocabulary squared on this one. Okay, so to square a number means to multiply the number by itself. We are literally making squares out of numbers, which is why I have this on graph paper today. It's a little bit easier to draw squares. All right, so to square a number, multiply it by itself, literally making a square out of a number. Now, what happens when we have the opposite? So the opposite of squaring, okay, is to take the square root. Write it here. We're going to take the square root of a number. Okay? Square root of a number. All right? The symbol that we use for that looks like this. It looks like the V in Vans, right? That's what this is. That's the symbol. The symbol actually is not technically called the square root symbol. It's called the radical sign. But most people think of it as the square root symbol, but that's the square root. And we're literally just working backwards. So we're going to start with what this area is here. So we would say the square root of 16 is equal to 4 because 4 times 4, which is 4 squared, is equal to 16. So it's working backwards. Now, some of you guys might think, okay, not all of you, but some of you guys might be thinking, Miss Perry, but when we talk about negative numbers, well, couldn't this work for -4? Like -4 times -4, doesn't that also, that's -4 to the second power. Doesn't that also equal 16? Because a negative times a negative is a positive, and you would be correct. So how do I know what number to write? Is it 4? Is it -4? Because if we're working backwards, like it could be 4, but -4 works too. And so what you're going to rely on is what do they write out front? So in the problem, if they put a negative sign out front, then write the negative answer. If there's nothing out front, it's positive, just like we don't write the positive sign in front of a number. They don't write the positive sign if we want the positive answer. There is a newer symbol that you might see, which you'll see positive, negative. That's what we say, plus, minus, positive, negative. That means we just want both answers. So we would say that this is, and you don't have to write them out separately. That's what that symbol is for, plus, minus 4. What this means, though, is +4 and -4 answer the answers at the same time. It's another math shortcut because math people are lazy. They come up with symbols. So so just use the symbol whenever you see it. So if there's a plus sign out front or nothing out front, positive answer. Negative sign out front, negative answer. You see that new plus minus sign? Just write it as plus minus. You don't even have to write these out here. Just plus minus in front, and that would be fine. Okay? All right, so we've got squaring a number, square a number, just square root a number, but our title says square roots of perfect squares. Ms. Perry, what's a perfect square? It's exactly what it sounds like. If a perfect square, those are numbers. So let me put this on here. Perfect squares. So perfect squares. Okay, perfect squares are numbers whose square root is, it should be just square root, is a whole number. Okay, it means that I don't need any decimals or fractions. That's why we kind of like today. So we want to say the first 10 perfect squares, we'll look at those in a second, but you can draw them. What that also means is I can easily draw them on graph paper. Like this is a nice little perfect square. And this is just one because there's one square there. The next one up would be just add one more square on each side. Well, there are 4 squares here, right? And then if I add one more square on each side, 3 times 3 is 9. And if I add another square on each side, it's 4 times 4, that's 16. And if I add another square on each side, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? This is 25. So these numbers inside here are perfect squares. These are perfect squares. 1, 4, 9, 16, 25. Those are the areas of these nice squares that we can draw on graph paper. Oh, that's not what I wanted to do. Yeah, so those are perfect squares. So there's another way to look at perfect squares. You can draw them on graph paper, but there's another way you can look at them, and I'm going to draw them with a number line. Okay, and we're just gonna think about positives right now. We're not even going to think about the negatives. So here's a number line. I might want to add that on there. All right, so let me do this. I'm going to start here with 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. We'll just go up to 10. Can we go more? Sure. I think you guys will get the idea in a little bit. So when we're doing perfect squares and trying to find the square roots of perfect squares, let's remember what it means to square a number, right? Because it's the opposite of that. So if we have 0 times 0, that's just 0. So that's the square root of 0. 1 times 1, that's 1. So if we take the square root of 1, the answer is 1. So here's the problem. Here's the answer, okay? So, but how am I going to fill out the top? Well, this is 2 times 2. That's going to go up here. So that's going to be the square root of 4. And if you guys notice, these are matching up with the numbers that were areas down here. So I have 1, 4, right? 9 should be the next one, right? 3 times 3, that's 9. So the square root of 9. 4 times 4, so this is going to be the square root of 16. 5 times 5, that's the square root of 25. 6 times 6, that's the square root of 36. 7 times 7, so this is going to be the square root of 49. 8 times 8, that's the square root of 64. 9 times 9, that's the square root of 81. 10 times 10, that's the square root of 100. So we can keep on going forever and ever and ever. So what I want you guys to do today is practice writing out the answers to square roots of perfect squares. And this is really important with no calculator. No calculator today. You can use the number line up here to help you, and I'll show you guys how to do that, but no calculator. And you're going to have to write your answers out to get credit. the way I'm about to show you. So let's say I want you to find the square root of 25. What's the square root of 25? Well, you're going to write down that it's 5. Not just that, but you're going to write down because 5 times 5 equals 5 squared, which equals 25. This entire thing is your answer. You cannot just write 5 and get credit. You have to write out the whole thing so I know you know what you're talking about and you kind of understand what's going on. So we could also say, okay, what's the square root of 64? Okay, you would write 8, not just 8. Then you're going to write down the reason. Because 8 times 8 equals 8 squared, which is equal to 64. And that is going to be your final answer. If you do not write those out this way, you will not get credit. Just so you guys know, warning you up front. But that's all you're going to do. So all you have to do is look up here. So for the square root of 64, I go over here to 64. Oh, look. And the answer is 8 because 8 times 8 is 64. Okay, same thing with 25. I can just look along the top here. 25, square root is 5. And hopefully, some of you guys may not even need the number line. Some of you guys might know your perfect squares or be able to think of them quickly. If you cannot, draw a number line and you can create it just the way I created it, just like this, to help you do these problems. All right, so have a good day. Work through the problems in the module. Have a great day, and I will talk to you later.